Hello and welcome to MSHGQM. So my name is Greg Deckler, and today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be building an external tool from scratch in for Power BI in Visual Studio. So WPF C# application, and I had an idea for a tool. I don't know if it's really going to be useful out there in general, but there's these things called annotations within Power BI, and so a lot of different objects that are within a Power BI data set have these things called annotations. They're kind of like notes, is my understanding of them. Obviously, given the name annotations, but I realized when I was coding metadata mechanic that sometimes these annotations are more than just informational. They actually impact things, and to be specific about it. When you're trying to set like a custom string, custom format string for like a date column, I noticed that it wasn't enact. I'd set the thing just like on other columns where it worked, like numbers and things, but in the case of dates, it didn't work. And it came down to the fact there was an annotation there, which I think basically housed like the friendly name for the date time, like short date and that sort of thing. And if that was set, then the custom string wouldn't go into effect essentially. So you had to remove that annotation, and then you're fine. So this got me thinking, like, well, kind of what other things are annotations used for? What other annotations are in the data model? So I thought I'd build a tool to like show those all to me, essentially. So now, what we're going to do first is we're going to build out a base Power BI external tools application that essentially has all of the building blocks that you need for a Power BI tool. And then we're going to stop, and I'm going to release that as open source. I know perhaps what you're thinking, like, oh my God, Greg, you hate open source. I don't hate open source. I hate all the idiocy that surrounds open source. Like, it's a better way to build software. Well, you put code in a repository and multiple developers collaborate on that code. Guess what? That's how commercial software is made, just like how open source software is made. And that's more secure. That's just a stupid argument. Those are all the things that I hate about open source. Is not open source itself. It's these people that try to build a cause around it or whatever. And so there's just a lot of idiotic statements out there about open source and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to get into all that. You guys don't want to hear me preach about it. We're going to start, but so I have no problem with open source as long as it's used for like educational purposes and things like that. Heck, that's how I learned how to code external tools in Power BI. Now, again, you could do the same thing. Like I started with Kay Uncroft's metadata translator. Is where I really the code that I studied and kind of adopted into MSHGQM and the other tools that are released in this on this channel and on the GitHub page for the channel. But there's a lot of stuff in there that you have to strip out, and it adds a lot of complexity, and takes a while to unwind it, if you will. So what I figured is, why not just create a base external tool that has all the building block components of it, that's fairly simple, easy to understand, and you'll have this video or a couple videos here while I'm building it so you understand how it's all put together and what everything does and what it's useful for and all of that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to create a new project, and you can see some of my projects I've been working on lately. We're going to create a new project. We want a WPF app.NET framework application, C#, that's what we want. And we're just going to call it PBI external tool. It's going to go there. Solution name is PBI external tool. We're going to place that, framework.NET 4.7.2. And away we go. Now I've got a couple other screens going on here where I have additional code that I'll be drawing from, so you guys don't want to see me, type out a bunch of code manually, I'm sure. But when I copy and paste in this, I'll go into a little more in depth, I think, than in the last two videos for Conductor, where I essentially, I skimmed over a few different parts. But I know I'm going to need a few folders. We're going to need converters. And we're going to need a folder. Am I going to need that? I know I'm going to need images. I can always add more folders later if I feel like I need them. Images. And let's see, one last folder here for UI. All right, so we've got our app config, all that sort of fun stuff. Let's start by adding in. So we're not going to do anything with the UI, pretty much. I'll probably add in like the top pane for like that I use for all of MSHGQM. Just shameless self promotion. If you're gonna use my open source code, you might as well have to look at my advertisements. All right, so let's add a new item. We're gonna add a new C# class. We're gonna call it data model. So here we go. Here's our initial class that we have. I'm gonna go and copy a bunch of code that I already have. So let's see. I need to go from here all the way down. Give me a second. Make sure I got it right. Looks right. Okay, so what are we doing here? Observable. Yeah, I don't need this stuff. And obviously I'm missing some references. So let me first, so that's why this model is not coming in. I don't have my references for my tabular model. So let's go grab some DLLs. Wrong DLLs. I know I can get those from conductor. There we go. Okay, I want this DLL. I want this DLL. I want that DLL. That DLL. Should be 6 of them. Yep, there are. These are kind of the 6. I don't know if you'll need all of them. Normally, you just need like the analysis services, now tabular, analysis services core. Copy. Okay, so where are we going to put these? We're going to put these, our new repositories PBI external tool, and maybe I'll just create a references folder. And the reason I'm doing this is because, if I compiled this code and create an installer for it and everything, these would all be included. But since I'm going to release this as source code, I figured I might as well include these within like the zipped up source so that you guys have these DLLs, because you're going to need at least 2 of these, if not all of them. Okay, so now I've got that done. I can go up here to references, add reference, browse, and we got to go find our DLLs that we've put in our references folder. Bink, bink, bink. Okay, can I add? There they all are, and hit OK. All right, so now we've got them in there, and so then we're going to need to add and tell it that we're using Microsoft.analysisservices.tabular. And there we go, so model. Okay, so what you're seeing here is that we have container, column, header. I don't need either of these. Okay, so what we have here is model get set. So we're going to create a variable called model that's of type model, which is analysis services tabular.model. As you can see in the little tooltip, we're then going to have a string that is our server name, a string that's our database name, and then this data set model, which is going to be public. This is going to be private. These are also public with private set, so that only this can set them. And then let's put our app tag of PBI external tool. Okay, so then here we have a data model function, or this is setting our data model, right? So we send it a string server, string database, and we set our server name, and so that's our server name string from up here, that's public, and database name to the server and database that are passed in. We then create a new server called PBI desktop, which is a new tabular server. We connect that server to the data source, which is our server name, and then the database is set to dataset equals PBI desktop database get by name, the database name, which is this guy, or also our public string. We set our model to the dataset.model, dataset model, and then dataset model set to the model. So that takes care of everything that we need to do as far as connecting to our data model. So pretty simple code. Let's see here. So now we also have this connection string. So most of my code, or all of my projects, all allow you to connect right from Power BI Desktop by launching it from the external tools toolbar, which passes in the server name and the database name. If those don't exist, then it kind of rolls back and asks you for a connection string, and it gives you a special UI for that. So that's all that this is doing. And obviously, we need to include some additional references here, which is, let's see, do I need to add that into my references? No, I should just have to tell them using system.text.regular expressions. Okay, now it's resolved all of those. So this is just basically it says, you see it in all of the MSHGQM applications. In fact, I'll just bring it up so that we can, whatever, it doesn't matter what we use. It's this guy right here, this data source equals, and then this is the server name, localhost, and then the port. That's where the analysis services for this data set is running on. And then this is the database name, so initial catalog. So that is what this code is parsing essentially, but it ends up doing the same thing, right? It parses it out, sets the server name, the database name, and sets our data set and all of that sort of fun stuff. So there's where we're doing PBI desktop, new server, connection string. So we can actually pass that connection string to connect. We only need to parse it so that we can have our server name and database name and that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's what that does. In this, I don't need any of this. So this initialize function is just in case you want to initialize certain things. We don't want to do anything as far as this one goes. And then this is our connect function. So we can say data model connect string server database, and we turn a new data model with server and database. Easy enough. And same thing for connection string. All right. So that's really all we need to do for the data model. I'm pretty much done with the code. This is what we'll need to connect to our, oh, I don't need this either. Although we'll need some of that when we actually make this thing do something as far as like grabbing all the annotations and things like that. But for a generic tool, we don't need any of that. I don't want the folder name as part of the name of that object. And so we're done with the data. So now the next thing that we do, we're going to need some images. So what I'm going to do is we'll go back to this guy. And this is from where we built Conductor. We want all of these images. And I finally found where the copy is. so I don't have to show more options. It's up here. They hid it from me in Windows 11. They moved my cheese. So we'll do this, and we can do paste. All right, so there's those, and then I believe what I can do is add existing item. I don't know why it took me back all the way to there. Well, did I not put them there? Oh, I know why. All files. Okay, there's all of our images in there. And so these are just images that are going to appear in that settings pane. So maybe we just want to go ahead and create that settings pane. And just checking, okay, settings panel is what I normally call it. So let's add to the UI, we'll add a new item. And we want is a user control. If I'm not mistaken. User control WPF. Settings panel. Okay, so again, we have some default XAML code here. And what we can do is I can take, I don't have, oh, I need the code for conductor. Do I have that up anywhere? No, I do not, but I can get it. Sorry, guys. I am going to open the conductor solution on this other screen I have here. It always makes me navigate to from the furthest possible distance. Probably should have had this. So here's the settings panel that we want right here, right? So what we can do is just grab from this grid on down to the end of the grid. Copy that. And I don't want this window. Okay. So we have, so here we have our PBI external tools, UI settings panel. This all looks fine. I don't think I need anything from, this is what I wanted. Anything different between these? Okay. Stop being helpful, Windows 11. So we have is visible changed, visibility underscore changed, and then background. We have a different background on there. I don't think I need that visibility changed. Again, I'm trying to keep this as minimal as possible. Just you don't have a bunch of junk to wade through. Other than the junk that I'm putting up here. Okay, so design width, design height. I don't have, okay, I just have a height and a width of auto. I don't have the design stuff. I don't need that. Okay, there we go. That looks better. Oh, and this does have external tools direction, so I have to get rid of that. And the refresh and the more. I don't need that either. So, all right, so now we're not getting our images, and that is because we are using the wrong namespace here. So I should just have to do that. Okay, so yeah, I gotta find all these. I'll explain what each of these. And I mean, these are basically just buttons, right? They're buttons, and they have a tooltip. It tells a little bit about them, and then what you do, what happens when you click, which we'll have to put all of that in the code behind for the XAML. I think I know why these. And then what we gotta get rid of all this external tools directory. So we don't need any of that at all. Did I get rid of too much? Oh, I just shortened it up because of the images aren't loading up right now. That ends that stack panel, and then I have a bunch of text boxes. That's our server name. We want that. And we don't need any of this stuff. Okay, so let's see here. Why these are not component images. I think maybe if I just do a clean. Nope, still not showing up. Okay, I knew I was going to get some of that. Okay. And these aren't resolving because, and anyway, so obviously then I've got the labels and then they're tied to hyperlinks, or the images themselves are set to, I actually, when you click on them, they're going to navigate to a particular hyperlink. So let's just get all that code over here and see if that helps us resolve some things. Settings panel, where's my settings panel? Probably in the UI. Settings panel. Oh, and I think okay, maybe. Conductor.settings panel. Okay, that's probably what the problem is. It always wants to add in that UI. That should be fine. Oh. Get rid of this. Yeah, that definitely resolved that. And then get rid of this namespace. Get rid of that UI. Still not resolving my images. We will figure it out. We always do one way or another. Okay. Got a bunch of garbage code in here that we're not going to need. Like this reset external tools, visibility change, copy button, click, OK button, click, backup button, click, close, focus, unfocus. Here's the stuff we're going to need. All right, back here, paste those in. Process.start. Okay, we're gonna need another reference. It looks like a reusing statement. What do we need? Yeah, this one right here. Oh, there's. Okay, what are we missing here? Windows, system Windows navigation. So this is the actual using code. Okay, I need to add that. Okay, that resolved. Whatever was causing that, we resolved it. But we do need to add a reference, system Windows forms. That's going to be under assemblies, system Windows forms. Okay, that's gone now. All right, there we go. So this is our hyperlink request navigation, request navigate one function, right, where we go and start a new process, and we're passing in, an argument for the request navigation, DNA button click, going out to a specific different locations. There's no references for this guy because it's left over from other code. We can get rid of it. These all have one reference. It should be coming from our XAML. So that's all looking good. Settings panel user control. Oh, so we probably should add this reference in here. There. It's ambiguous reference between, because we have forms in that. So that's just specific. It is a system Windows controls user control, which explains why that was spelled out right here. So basically what this is saying is that, and it says I don't really need this reference up here, or this using statement. I don't need these other ones either, but whatever. I'm just going to leave them in for right now. They're not really going to hurt anything. But basically what this is saying is that there's an object called user control in two different places. So it could refer to system Windows controls, user control, or system Windows forms, user control. That's all that's saying. And it still doesn't it doesn't say that there's an error with my images. Can I actually build this thing now? Okay, what if I oh, well, I haven't displayed it on my screen yet, but I don't know why my images are still not showing up like I would like them to. But let's go ahead and switch to main window so we can actually display this. And what I'm going to need to display this, I reference conductor again, our main window, XAML. That's our connection string input. There's our local settings panel. And let's see, we're going to need, let's grab a little extra code here. All right, there's our settings panel. Its name is ads. That's how we're going to refer to it. And right now, we only really need 2 rows. So we're going to have this settings panel, and then whatever's below it. I may create another user control for you guys, or you can just add in, because we'll see how it goes. Like, for example, on a lot of this, I use my main, this is using a scroll viewer, so I just add in the scroll viewer control. This is conductor, then the scroll viewer control is where it shows up all your external tools and all that sort of stuff show up. And then grid row 2 is add tool. Okay, there's a button down there. Basically, it's another panel where it allows you to add the tools or edit the tool definitions, which isn't in the free version of Conductor, but it is in the pro version through Enterprise DNA. So that is that, and then we're still not getting our images. Great. I'm sure there's a very logical explanation for why that is. So we're going to go and take a sidetrack and see if we can figure out what it doesn't like. Oh, geez, oh man. Something so, oh, look at there. Oh, such little things cause such problems. I'm sure there's probably a number of you out there that noticed that and like screaming at me the entire time. But if you're external tool, not tools. Okay, and then we have this AS server info that is going to display our, that's this right here. You can't really see it because I've set it to the same background color, but that's right here. It's just a text box, and that's going to display our connection to our data model once we have that all going, and which we don't have right now. But all right, so now we have, you've basically built the UI at this point. So yeah, if we do this, there we go. That's going to be our entire UI. So it's going to be a do nothing Power BI external tools application. Obviously, we're not getting our connection string because we're not actually connecting to the data set yet, because we're not passing in any parameters or anything like that. So let's get that going. So to do that, we're going to write a little bit. I think I might have shown this in the conductor video, but basically we have to go into here. We have to grab this little function. We need our main window where we're passing an E, and otherwise that's not going to resolve. All right, so here we have our main window, initialize component and all that fun stuff. So what we need is some additional code here where, let's see, external tools, array list, groups list. I don't need any of that stuff. There's that. I don't need any of this stuff. What I do need is this and this. And this connect the data set. Okay, yep, I'm gonna need that. Then the rest starts getting into custom code that I'm not going to need. Don't need that, don't need this, don't need this. So you can tell there's gonna be a lot of code that you're going to need, or what's going to be released in as is. I think it's going to be useful. It's going to get you past, the one. It's going to give you a learning platform to see how some of this code works and all that. But as you can tell, it's not going to be. It's going to probably only be about 10% of the code that you're actually going to need to write. Okay, so there's my init UI, which Power BI engine equals database name equals. Okay, all right. Probably need something like that. Yeah, so this is where this add server info.text, I'm setting it to that connection string. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this code. Well, if I could select it, get this code here. Yep, we're missing some different things like init UI. Let's go ahead and grab the init and resolve that. It's definitely missing some additional stuff. That's okay. We will figure that out. We don't need this. This is a handy little function, get main window. So if you have other user controls and you need to grab the main window, that is a handy little function to have. So I will include that in the code. Now, I guess I should probably include the comments. So that is that one, and we don't need this code here. External tools, directory, external tools, back. We don't need any of that sort of stuff. Okay, there's our PBI engine and all that sort of stuff. So let's see here. Okay, dependency properties. External tools backup. I'm not going to really get into dependent. So data model object, we definitely need this code here. Power BI engine property is our Power BI engine, and our database name property is that. That should resolve all of that stuff. These are just okay. That's all. Resolve some of this stuff. Why doesn't it like data model property? Why doesn't it like data model? Is less accessible to public. Let's see, what is it complaining about? Public main window, everything's public. Private init UI, that should be fine. That resolved it. Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, so this is not going to build then? No. Settings panel was not found. In the namespace, CLR namespace, PBI external tool. Really? PBI external tool. PBI external tool. Sometimes even just copying code from one place to the next is a pain. Namespace conductor. Namespace PBI external tool. So that is the same, that's equivalent. Conductor, settings panel, namespace conductor. PBI external tool, that's settings panel, settings panel. XMS local, CLR namespace external tool. That all looks right. So maybe that's not even a real error. Okay, I don't know what I did. Stop. Oh, what's more interesting is this inconsistent accessibility property data model. What is going on there? So it's really no different than this. Did I miss somewhere? Data model. Data model. Data model property. No more entries. That's interesting because I'm not defining it up here anywhere. I don't do anything with it up here. That's just all like checking if I'm running as admin. It's so strange because I have not run into this. I've done this a number of times. I can't remember running into this issue in the past. Public class data model. Somehow. Okay, I need to dock this somehow. I don't know how I undocked it. Jeez. Okay, here we go. Now I'm back in business. Oh. What it's complaining about. Maybe. Yes, that got rid of that one. Still didn't get rid of this. Okay, it succeeded. It's fine now. It's happy. Okay, it's time for a drink. And it's just iced tea, people. Okay. Moving on. It's those little things like that that just drive me up the wall when coding and take up the vast majority of time, it seems like. But again, once I've got this all created for you guys and all these kind of stupid issues worked out, then you won't have to worry about all this sort of shenanigans. Okay. So we've got our data model. We have our settings panel, got our main window. Now that we have all this started right with getting what we wanted was to let's spend a little bit of time to walk through the code. So we created, it really started with this right here, this public main window startup event args e. So when you launch Power BI, an external tool from Power BI Desktop, in the JSON file that defines that external tool, there's an arguments property. And you pass in %server % and %database %. And those come in as command line arguments for the executable. So what this does, it takes those command line arguments, make sure there's 2 of them, then it does a connect the data set with event arg0 and event args1. Versus like another way, this is just another overload where if you want to run this and create a main window, the application essentially, and pass it in server name and database. We're not technically going to use that probably. It's got 0 references. We could probably get rid of it if we wanted to. But I think we might actually end up using it later down the line. And then I'm kind of interested. I don't know why this is not in a try catch block. It probably should be. I might do that. Kind of like this one. So this is a connected data set where it's a connection string. This is a function connected data set, and you're passing a connection string. And so then it tries to connect to the data set and then initialize the UI. Otherwise, it does a catch and shows you an error message. And then this is connected data set. So that's what this guy up here is referencing, where you're passing in a server and a database name. And it also does a try. Okay, so that's why the try catch is down here, not up there. Duh, makes sense. Okay, so it tries to connect to the data set and then initialize the UI. If it doesn't, it comes back with an error message and it shuts the application down. Not sure why this one doesn't shut the application down. Oh, because you can try to put in a different connection string. Duh. And then here is a init UI, so it's setting those, basically grabbing and setting those kind of dependency properties, if you will, to the data model server name, data model database name, and then it's setting the text in our settings panel. Remember, we called it ads for the Power BI engine and that in the server and database that it's connected to. So that's all of this code, right? Now this is, we're going to put this into its own region. Is that not how you do it? I always get confused with some of this stuff, and I always have to go back and look. I'm in the wrong spot. Yeah, helper functions. That's what I want. Init UI, and this is a bunch of stuff. And then I'll probably want one for okay. So this is our init UI, and then this is our main window. And then down here, we're going to want a different region. There we go. We need to end our region. Into our region, gets rid of the stuff it's complaining about. And so basically regions just help you do this kind of stuff. Like, okay, I don't want to look at helper functions and I don't want to look at dependency properties. So that helps you collapse those up, keeps your code nice and clean when you're editing it. Yeah, so that's it. This is the entire, should be most of the entire, well, I mean, we're gonna do some more stuff, but for right now, that's pretty much it. So we should be able to launch this. Yep, displays, still not connecting or anything, so let's go get that done. That's what we had sort of started out to go do. So what we need here is we need a function in our actual app itself. It's application startup. And all this is doing, right, is this saying, hey, when you start this app, go run main window with passing in these command line parameters, which are coming in from when we run it, in theory, if you launch it from Power BI. And so then we need to change this. So this needs to be, we call it application startup. I believe all we have to do is change, yeah. You gotta remember which tool I'm in when I'm, so this needs to be startup instead of startup URI. This needs to be startup and then application startup. Okay, so now when this application launches, its startup is going to call the function application startup. That application startup is defined here. It's going to call that and pass in the sender, which is where it's coming from, and then the command line arguments. From there, we are going to create a main window object by calling new main window with the command line arguments, and then we're going to show it. And so when this gets called, right, what we're doing is up here, we're saying, hey, if you call me with my startup event args with E, so we're using this function, go ahead and go connect to the data set with the parameters event arg0 and event arg1 server database. When we connect to our server with server and database, we then initialize our data model by connecting to it using our data model object, and then we initialize the UI. And to initialize the UI, we set our Power BI engine, our database name, and our server text. So now if we run this now with a server name and database, then we should be able to see that appear in our settings panel. So where are we going to get that from? Well, that's one of the nice things about MSHGQM and all the tools is that they all include it. So because they're all built the same way, we can copy this. We'll bring up our, we need a new notepad. And of course it comes off the screen. Paste this in there. This is our server name. Copy that, go back to this guy. All right, so the way that we can do this while we're debugging and that sort of stuff, we can go to the project properties and we can go to debug, command line arguments, paste in the server name. Now, obviously, if I closed and relaunched that Power BI file, then these would change. But now if I start this, there we are, we're connected. Ta-da! All right, so now we have a basic application, we're getting there, right? In fact, I think we're not completely done yet. Could I release this out there to you guys with this? Sure, but I think I want to add a few other nice to have little things, right? Because this, if you had this, then you're already connecting to the data set. And obviously I want to add in the JSON file to use, as well as I'll create an installer project and include that. So you guys know how to do that sort of thing as well. But yeah, so let's make sure that this works. Oh yeah, so brought it up. So yeah, so it brought me to this page, mastering Microsoft Power BI. I think this is still on. Yeah, it's not been released. It's on pre-order. Literally, I've been going through the final. There's a process where you have to kind of look at the final proofs, if you will. So I got most of those done. I think it's like 13 or 14 chapters, but almost done. All right, back to the task at hand. Let's see what we want to do. Additional with this. So I'd mentioned that connection string. So let's go ahead and add that in next, because I think you guys will want to use that. And let's see. I want to go over my UI. New item, WPF user control, and we want to call this connection string input dot XAML. Connection string input dot XAML. Okay, so there we have that. Oh, we're gonna need. Oh yeah, we're gonna need a resources directory. We're gonna need that. We're gonna need to add a new item. I think it's a resource directory. Okay. Resource dictionary is what it's called. Resource dictionary. And we're going to call that something really insanely crazy. Called it string dictionary. If I can spell string dictionary. .xaml, sure, that's what we're going to call it. All right, so what this is a string dictionary. It's just a place to hold like strings. Let's see. We're just going to copy this and just modify it. So, and I'll show you what I'll explain what this is used for. So we don't want this namespace. We want PBI external. Yep, external tool. Okay. So what this is saying is I'm defining a system string that I can use within. There's other ways to do this, but this is how I learned to do it. So I'm just passing this along. So these are just strings that we're going to use. You know, data set connection string, cannot start server without database arguments, and a connection string to the data set. So, and then these are obviously the keys for them and things like that. So we've got our string dictionary now. So now what I can do, and these are going to be used in this new UI that we're building, which is here. Let's get here's our connection string input. So there it is. See, enter the connection string to the data set connection. Those are coming from, you guessed it. So now what I should be able to do, get rid of this window. Should be able to just basically copy this grid piece over. In theory, if everything is defined the same way, it should just work. I may have to modify some of this stuff, but we'll see. We've got external tool, connection string input. We have our empty grid here. Paste it in. Okay. So certain things came through. Certain things did not. I think these are just because if I cleaned and built this, that these would resolve. Maybe. Still doesn't like it. Static resource dataset connection should be there. And there's one thing I think well, let's go ahead and build it and see if it resolves it. Nope, doesn't like it. If I remember correctly, okay, so obviously there's something that is not correct. So I think if I go to conductor, I think if I go to properties on conductor, now those are actual settings. I remember I had this problem before at one point. I don't remember how I resolved it. String dictionary.xaml, it's under resources. It is it's in the right namespace, PBI external tool, not tools. That all looks fine. Which means that I must be missing. Maybe I think I need to add the code in. So let's go back to the code. And this truly is coding without a net here, people. Let's see. Namespace conductor. Oh, I wonder if that's in the wrong namespace now. Cancel button, OK button. So we're going to need these. This namespace stuff gets crazy. Okay, so that should be resolved now. So this should resolve that. And then I'm still getting underlined, but I was doing that for the images as well. So I built it and then it worked. Gotta love it. So now so all that for that. About the namespaces and stuff, fun stuff. I go to debug and let's say well, this isn't gonna work yet. Well, it's not gonna work yet. It's not going to work yet because I'm not displaying it on the main window yet. But in theory, right, so if I took this away, then it should pop up. What I want to have happen is I want to have it pop up this interface and have you enter in the connection string. Now, so and again, we need this to show up in our main window. So right now, all we have is our local settings panel. So back to conductor and main window.xaml. And so we have the scroll viewer, and then this is the add tool. But what we want is this guy right here, this connection string input. Anyway, it's bound to our data model, and that's binding our visibility. Okay, and so we're probably going to need to do the static resource false true visibility converter. Fun. And then we'll have to do the true false visibility converter. Yeah, binding of the data model. So what this is saying is, hey, if I have a data model, so this is binding this visibility to the data model and using this function here to return true or false, more or less. So we need to add this into our main window within the other one. And this is going to take a little bit of work because we don't have these yet, but that's okay. We're going to add them in. And so basically this is saying, hey, if I don't have a data model, then show this and don't show this grid. Is really all that's saying. And so that way I get the connection string input if I haven't bound to a data model, or if I have bound to a data model, I don't get that connection string input. That's all that is. So here we have our grid, and then we have a grid and then another grid. Okay, so grid margin 0, and then that is that replaces our other grid. So let's go ahead and grab both of these because we want to remain consistent. And we're going to replace this grid, and we have another grid, and we need to end our grid. Okay, now you can see there's a bunch of stuff that it hasn't resolved yet because we don't have some of this. We don't have this false true visibility converter or anything like that. And if you noticed in here, we have Windows resources. We're going to copy this. This is our defining that these functions are available to this user control. Okay, but those are also unresolved. Well, if you remember when I created a folder, for converters. So here we have converters, and we have our true false visibility converter code. All right, so this is just a C# file. In fact, I should be able to, other than the namespace, this should be all correct. So I think I just want to add a new item. I don't want to add a class, I don't think. I just want to add a code file. And looking at my other screen, true false visibility converter. True false visibility converter.cs. Add that guy in there. And it's totally empty. And other than the namespace, PBI external tool. Okay, so now we have a true false visibility converter. We're converting the object and the type target and all this stuff. If value is bool, not visible, collapse. It's doing a bunch of stuff. And and really, I don't really care what this is doing. I just know it works. I think this is actually some original K Uncroft code in here, and that's fine. You know, this is going to be open source as well. So now, if we go back to this guy, let's see if we might get rid of that stuff. We clean it. Still doesn't. Let's see if we can build it. Okay, it succeeded, and those all went away, except for that one. Not find resource named dataset connection. Pretty sure dataset connection. There it is. Well, let's try it. Let's try it without. So now, well, let's try it with. So let's. It did not provide value Windows system. There's an exception. It still can't find that dataset connection. How odd. And that's what it's failing on. Well, why can you not find it? It is defined in here unless I totally hose something up. Dataset connection and dataset connection prompt. See, I thought there was something in the project. This is all the misery you guys are going to have to go through. Think about that. This is the misery I get to go through just trying to build this stuff for you guys. Let's see. String dictionary.xaml. I wonder, is it anything kind of build action page? Oh, can I view my properties, please? Yes, of course, and please doc. Page, do not copy, XAML intelligence, string dictionary.xaml. That all looks fine. It is a resource dictionary. It is of the right schema. It is of the correct that. This is namespace conductor, PBI external tool. The external tool is correct. System assembly. And then we just have our strings and we end our resource. So that looks perfectly fine. I might have to go back and watch my video on conductor and how we fixed this. I remember we did something. Oh, wait, it's coming back to me now. I believe there's some place in the app config or the app XAML. Yeah, there it is. Good times. And then once I did that, once I went into the properties of the application or the solution or the project or one of them, then it resolved. There we go. Now if I bring up the properties here, resources, I think I was clicking on one of these and it magically fixed something. Maybe it's not going to do it this time because I did things in some other different order. Just started. Hey, look at that. So, well, something didn't work still because we shouldn't be getting this. You should be getting, unless it's because we don't have anything in our other window in terms of a grid or anything. And so this is showing up. Well, anyway, at least we got it compiled and working now. We do have this thing, it gets displayed. We just have to figure out now why something is showing up versus nothing. Yeah, because it's showing this, and it's showing this. Well, let's see what happens if we do. So we have grid, we have that. Let's do a stack panel. Orientation equals vertical. Let's just put a control on here for the time being. Text box. It 100. So it goes on there. Okay. But that didn't seem to do anything. Oh, grid row 0, grid dot row equals 1. That's 0, that's 1. Not sure why it's not showing up. Okay. Oh, there it is. That's weird. All right, so I obviously have something going on here that's different than what is normal. So normally this should only show up when this does not show up. Yeah, because they're both the same element name. Obviously, I need to go back to here. Okay, what else is different about this code versus the other code? Got our Windows resources defined. We should add on main window closing. I need to go find that. And then the grid margin 0, we have our local, then we have our grid. Is it something with our column definitions or something like that? I don't know. Yeah, now if I add, so to give a for instance of how it's supposed to work. Here we have our localhost and all that. I'm going to copy that for right now. So if I launch conductor with those parameters, well, obviously, when I was running it with different, since closed it down. Copy these, go back to conductor, properties, run properties, paste them in, save them, start it. We get it, there it is. That's what's supposed to happen. But if we run it without them, we start it, then we get this, which is that is how it's supposed to work. So something is haywire, either maybe, it is, and we literally copied this code directly and just change the namespace on it. So that should be fine. Okay, so let's figure out what's going on here. Well, let's run it without this. Copy, get rid of it, save, start. Let's see what happens. Okay, we get the exact same screen. That is really weird. Okay. So something is going on here that I don't know is going on. Don't normally run into this kind of a problem either. Of course, when I decide to make a video on this, all the stuff hits the fan. All right. Common definition width is star, auto. So that fixed that, but it's still not this. And this does look like this in design view. I guess we could check this first off. Our public partial class connection string input user control. We don't need all of this junk that it auto generated for us. And this is just our, so here's where we're using that get main window this. What was that on main window closing? You add tool external to presentation XAML compatibility blend. Maybe external tool is ignorable. Yep. That's all fine. So that is not where our problem lies. And that's my somewhere in our main windows, is what I'm thinking. Or was it that visibility changed thing? Well, let's check this first. I'm going to move this to a different screen so I can tell what the heck's going on. Oh, wrong one. I'm going to move this one to my other screen. Keep this one where it is. Okay, so we are going to look at main window on both of these. I apologize, you guys can't see what I'm comparing, but that's to make it easier for me. All right, this line is correct. This line is correct. Namespace, obviously it's a little different. M ignorable. Remember how they both have the element name main? Well, there it is. Okay, and then there's that on closing equals on main window closing, which that must be, if I look in conductor, I would think I'd have to have an event handler for that. I mean, look at that, region event handlers. Adds loaded. This is really all I need. So we're going to add that one. That's my event handler that I'm going to need. So back to this guy. The thing about this is all the stuff that you guys don't have to do, man. Cancel event args. Doesn't like that. So we're missing a using somewhere. Pretty sure I don't need those. System. Again, we're going to cancel event args. Where is that going to be located? So I have system collections generic, which I'm not using. We're going to get rid of all the ones we don't use. Windows controls, Windows media imaging, system component model. Apparently that was the one. Okay. And so all these it says are unnecessary. Again, I just want to keep this clean for you guys so that, I mean, maybe leave those in there, maybe not, but you might wonder why those things are in there. Okay. So back to the task at hand. Next name is main, on main window closing. Any other differences that are important? Oh, the title. You don't want it to be title main window. EBI external tool. There we go. We have our on main window closing. Now, okay, so height is set to 450 and width is this. Now, normally I set this width to 1250. Oh yeah, do I want to mess around with an icon or a background for this guy? We might add that in here. I'm running around it's about an hour or so. Oh, it's been a bunch of BS in terms of the ghost white. So, and I can get rid of now. I should be able to get rid of that stupid text box that I added. I'll leave the stack panel there for you. So door controls go here. There, how about that? All right. There it is. So now we have our connection string that we could enter in. If we cancel, it'll cancel out. But if we, hopefully I still have these copied and pasted. Nope, of course not. That's just why I should, oh, hang on. Let's use the new trick. Windows V. Oh, and I didn't have it turned on. So, okay, now it's turned on. Windows V is the your copy paste history. Thanks to Brian Julius for that little tip. That's okay. This is how I used to do my copy paste history in the past. I just put it in Notepad. That's efficient, but still workable solution. Okay, so now that's back in there. Hit start. So now it connects, and we don't get the connection string. So yeah, there we go. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to show, that I want to put in there. I'm sure there is, and obviously it's a little wider than what it was. You have your connection string inputs. That's going to work for you. But at this point, we're mostly done, and I think I'm probably going to end this this version of or this video, and obviously I will want to add an installer for this and a custom installer class so that you essentially have a fully ready to go functioning tool that does nothing. But I'll release it as open source, and if you don't want to go through the hour and a half or so that we spent, monkeying around with getting all of this to work, you won't have to do that. You can get started and get going, and I'll probably put in some additional stuff like, okay, put your, I don't know what you're going to want to do with this, but I could add in some stuff into the data model. Like I could add some functions in here, like how to create a measure or creating a column in the data model or creating a table in the data model. If you guys think that would be valuable, maybe I add that into a future update release to this template application. But my goal is then let's get this thing finished up, get the installer done, and then I'm going to use this tool. I'm going to use this template, if you will, without having to go through all this rigmarole. That I can then use this to then create the new application the annotation viewer application without having to do all of this. And I kind of go through this. I've been going through this sort of every time when I create these tools. So it's going to be a benefit to myself as well. Hopefully it's beneficial to someone else in terms of being able to get this, basically jump through all of these kind of hoops and boom, you're just focus on what you need to code for the external tool without having to worry about all this BS about how, you know, these different the connection string UI pops up or doesn't pop up and this and that. And you have all the code, you know, available to you for, you know, that, you know, basically takes it and takes the command line arguments and feeds them in and then connects to the data model. And that's all taken care of for you. You don't have to worry about it. And there's no extra junk in here that you have to, you know, kind of unwind because it's a full-fledged application. You know, at the worst, what you could do is you come in here to main window and you could uncomment, you know, one line, which is more or less this guy right here. And then this goes away and, you know, away you go. Just go code your app. All right, so that's been it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm probably going to go and create the next video today as well, where I create the installer and stuff like that. And if there's anything else that I'm thinking I'm missing that I want to add into this, I'll do that as well. But that's it for this video, and thanks for watching.